Welcome to another episode of Behind the Dreamers with the Starter Girls. I'm Jennifer Loading.
And I'm Brianna Dreles, and we're talking to the achievers, the dreamers, the creators, and the magic makers.
These are our friends, these are your friends, and they are living the extraordinary. Today's episode is brought to you by Walt Mills, photographer of Glad Models Agency. If you are here in the Dallas or surrounding area and looking for some photography work, check out Walt Mills. You can learn more about him at photosbywalt.com.
That's right.
That's right.
Where are we right now?
We are in the lovely Staycation in Richardson, Texas. We like it here.
We do like it here.
Show here
I know.
now.
It's just so wonderful.
It might become our permanent hangout. Who knows?
I know. We'll just have to talk to Nicole about that.
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, we've got Sheena here today, so I'm super excited to welcome her to the show. I got to tell our listeners a little bit about her, and so and then we can jump into this.
Perfect.
All right, Sheena. It's Sharapata.
There you go.
We got it. Suffered 8 concussions, having to forego a full-ride athletic scholarship in college while playing select soccer. Doctors diagnosed her with migraine with aura for 18 years. With further testing, she found out she had bilateral trigeminal neuralgia, which is a blood vessel on the 5th cranial nerve. Due to the severity of pain, it is often referred to as a suicide disease. Sheena ended up having MVD, microvascular decompression surgery on her right side in October of 2019, and then on her left side in March of 2020. Through this experience, she says, I've found my purpose, and I've sent over 150 people to the neurosurgeon, helping as many as I can because I understand how difficult it is to get diagnosed. Sheena currently carries her spirit of helping others through her work at Randall Reed's Planet Forward, 635 here in Dallas, where she's responsible for the marketing, building community, and the events.
Yes.
I love So welcome to the show, Sheena.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So I'm going to put a little, I guess, add to this because Sheena was actually introduced to me through a guest that we had back on the Starter Girls show back at the end, I think, of 2019, or it was at the very end. I think it was right before you came on. And Anna Harris and her husband Will Harris, they're great realtors in the area. Both of them were on the show. Anna connected me to Sheena, and it was so funny because Anna does this email introduction for both of us, and she's like, Sheena's been diagnosed with this disease called trigeminal neuralgia. And I'm like, what are the odds of that?
Yeah.
Because I was diagnosed with that in 2012. So I brought her on the show for a couple reasons. One, because we share the similarity, but also because I think that when somebody goes through a traumatic experience like that, there are certain characteristics that you have to have in order to weather through that. And I think a lot of times those same characteristics are things that entrepreneurs go through too when they're in the valleys of business.
Yes.
So I think there's some very common threads here. And so I really wanted you to come on so you could talk about your story and share a little bit about that journey going through that. And obviously she's beautiful and amazing.
Oh,
Look at
thank
her.
you. Yes.
She's surviving. She made it through, right?
Yes,
Absolutely
yes.
amazing.
Made it through. So I guess, yeah, take us back real quick. You suffered 8 concussions, played select soccer. I had a child that did select soccer as well, so I know that too.
Soccer is actually very brutal.
Yes, and I agree.
Yeah.
I agree from the parent perspective of it.
Yeah, so one of my concussions, I was actually running up the field and a girl came in and slide tackled me. So my feet went this way and my head just went straight into the ground.
Wow.
And she got red carded and kicked out of the game. So over the course of a couple years, I ended up having 8 concussions. And when I would get a concussion, I would have these episodes where I would actually get vertigo, blurred vision, or floaters, and then my whole hand and arm would go completely like tingle and go numb, and it was just like dead weight, like I could just fall straight over. And then it would go into my nose, my tongue, my teeth, nerve pain, and then I'd have like this ice pick pain up into my eye, and I'd throw up. And all these doctors were like, your scans are clear, you have migraines. So, you know, I'm watching all my friends go to college and play, you know, on athletic scholarships, and I had to just sit there and watch and quit. And I'm like, why? Why is this happening to me? And so I ended up just kind of, I went to the University of Oklahoma and didn't play sports. And then all those symptoms kind of changed, and I had this crazy, crazy pressure, like my head was in a vice, and it felt like my eyes were gonna pop out of my head. And I even had my eye pressures checked thinking something was off, but it was normal. And then I had the ringing in my ears, plugged ears, blurred vision, strained. My neck was extremely tight, and I had so many knots in my muscles that I was getting like 6 to 7 deep tissue massages a month because it would ache just to sit there. And then when I was about 32, I started getting what felt like a worm was moving in my head right here. So almost if you imagine like a signal going across a wire, and it would tighten up in my head. And I'm like, what is that? And then I started getting electric shock in my eye and in my ear. So I'd be talking to someone and just go like that all of a sudden. They're like, are you okay? I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with me. So I ended up going into a hospital in Dallas, and they're like, no, everything looks great. And thank goodness my mom and dad went with me. And my mom goes, my sister, so my aunt has trigeminal neuralgia. Can we check for that? So you actually have 12 cranial nerves in your head, and your fifth nerve is your trigeminal nerve that runs like this. And if you have a blood vessel sitting on it, if you Google this, it says you have nerve pain in your teeth, shocks in your teeth, and you're familiar, most people can't even, eat food or brush their teeth. They have to blend their food, and you can't even touch your face. Well, I didn't have any of that. So they're like, no, you don't have that, but we can do a Fiesta MRI with and without contrast to see if you need to do, just to rule it out.
Right.
So it comes back negative. I'm devastated. And then 3 days later, I get a phone call at 7 at night, and the phone lights up and it says neurosurgeon, and it wasn't programmed, just how the phone works. I was like, hello? And they're like, hey, this is, doctor, just letting you know, you actually have this. You can take anti-seizure pills your whole life, do laser radiation, or you can have surgery. Just let me know. Bye. I was like, wait, what?
Right.
Are there more options? So that kind of got me to my diagnosis, and I didn't really find many answers locally. So I typed in the MVD surgery, and Dr. Michael Lim, who is at Johns Hopkins, this video popped up. And I just had this feeling from above, I called it. I'm like, that's where I'm supposed to go. So I ended up calling Johns Hopkins, and at the time, you couldn't pick your neurosurgeon. So I sent all my paperwork, and 3 days later, they're like, you've been assigned Dr. Lim. And I'm like, okay, this is meant to be.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So I'm stubborn and booked a flight for 7 a.m., then flew out there, had like a 2 o'clock appointment, and flew back 7 o'clock at night by myself. So Ubered to Johns Hopkins, had the appointment, and he's like, I can help your shocks and stabs, but I don't know about any of this other stuff. So that kind of like deterred me a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I said, what would you do if you were me? And he paused and said, I know God's telling me to tell you, I know I can help you with surgery. I was like, all right, let's do this. So I ended up having surgery on this side in October 2019, and they drill a tiny little hole behind your ear, and they go in and put a spacer, a Teflon spacer between the blood vessel and nerve so they don't touch. And after he put the Teflon in, I had another place touching that was going into my brain stem. So he was able to decompress that and had to leave just a little area touching. And afterwards he goes, I'm so thankful you came to me. If an inexperienced neurosurgeon would have cut that or messed with that, you could have had a severe stroke.
Right.
So,
yeah. Wow. It's a crazy story,
yeah.
isn't it? And the thing, well, and that's the thing with this disorder is that it is so extremely painful. So the part where you said, well, I hopped on the plane and went out there, I could totally see that happening, because when you're in the middle of that, it is so freaking painful. You will do anything to end it. Like, you will drive across the country if you have to get it over with.
Yeah, and even the mindset that we're in. So like during surgery, I mean, most surgeries you have to do this anyway, but I had to sign off on vision loss, hearing loss, worse problems, facial paralysis, coma, or death. And I was like, all right, sign me up.
Sign me up.
Like,
if there's a
fix
potential
it.
for me to be better, sign me up. Right?
Yeah. And they say only 1% to 2% of people have it on both sides. And if you actually speak to a lot of these neurosurgeons and say you have issues on both sides, no, it can't be trigeminal neuralgia, and they won't even listen to you. So I never talked about my other side ever. So once this one was done, I was like, hey doc, can you look at the imaging on the other side? And they're like, yeah, you have it on the other side too. I was like, is this a joke?
Yeah, it's so interesting though with these kinds of conditions, because I had an atypical case which there was no compression. They could now maybe there was and they missed it. I don't know. I had an MRI done and they didn't find it. And so what gets me or I find interesting about this whole thing is that they feel like they have this clear-cut diagnosis with these things. And I know when I was diagnosed in 2012, and so when I was diagnosed, They really didn't have groups on Facebook. I didn't know anybody that had the condition.
Right.
So there was none of this, hey, let me talk to you and say,
Yeah.
what are your symptoms? What are your symptoms? I didn't know. And
You're
so
still in
you
the dark.
would go into a doctor. It took them 5 months for them to diagnose me with this, because I would go into a neurologist, I would go into a doctor, I'd go back to the dentist.
Yep.
I mean, they just would push me around in a circle until, and because the symptoms weren't normal.
Yep.
They weren't classic. Like, I would be fine, then I wasn't, then it would just be unending pain that just was every day. So I think it's interesting that they get hung up on these are the only symptoms that can be for this condition, and we're not going to, if you don't fit the box, you can't have that.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
So thank goodness you pursued it.
Yes. Yes. Oh, and at the time, my parents, they were like, can you find a neurosurgeon in Dallas so we can take care of you? Because, you know, they didn't know. And most people think flying across the country is insane to do. But
not when you have that.
Not when you have that. Yeah. So I went to this Dallas neurosurgeon also, who was very well respected and recommended. Sure. And walked in, never shook my hand, said, your blood vessel is barely touching your nerve. It's probably sinus pressure. Good luck getting your insurance company to cover this, never being on anti-seizure meds. And my favorite I've ever heard, to my face, you don't look suicidal to me, because it's known as the suicide disease.
Right.
And I just bawled.
Yeah.
And then my mom and dad were like, how did it go? And I was like, I'm going to Johns Hopkins. They're like, okay.
Yeah. No, I can certainly, I'm not going to say I know how you feel with everything, but I've certainly been through that, and I can understand that there's a lot of, I guess, dismissing, gaslighting that goes on. I even talked about that in my book, about the gaslighting, because you would go to one place and you go to another, and they think you're crazy. They're like, well, if you would calm down, you'd be better. Well, I can't calm down because I'm not better.
Right.
You're not giving me answers, so how do I get better if I don't know? So when you even said earlier, when you got diagnosed, you actually kind of smiled. And I thought about that, because there's that whole part in there where when you finally get a diagnosis, you go, it's not that you enjoy having a diagnosis. You just want the clarity to know you're not crazy.
It's
now
relief.
You know you've got something. What do you do now with it?
It's your validation.
Exactly.
You finally,
I'm not nuts.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. And like she said, there's so many different symptoms, and now it's almost like there's this whole head trauma side to trigeminal neuralgia, and a lot of people don't recognize that yet. So if you literally go to the doctor, oh, your face is fine. Nope, you don't have it. You know, or the imaging. My cousin, she was actually in Michigan in the ER for 7 nights. Concussions, cheerleading, and then she goes, look, I need to be tested for this. My cousin has this, her mom has it, and they look it all over like, nope, you're good, we don't see anything. So, you know, anyone would normally respect the doctor, and she was devastated. I said, Erin, this just means that you need to go to Dr. Lim.
Yeah, you need to get moving.
So she sent the MRI there, and he found 2 places touching, and she had surgery. Yeah.
I think you have to be an advocate for your own health.
Yeah.
Because I don't like to say all doctors are sloppy, but I think it's a system, and you go in and then you have 15 to 30 minutes to tell your story, and they don't even know all the pieces to it. They know what you're telling them right there, and if it doesn't fit in their little book that they flip open in that process, no, you're done. Well, no, you're in severe pain. And the thing with nerves is nerves can do all kinds of things.
Right.
Like this idea that we have that you have to have something compressing on something, a nerve can go bad. Like you can do something to something, you know, like cut your finger, you're going to feel nerve pain, you know? I mean, so I think you have to be an advocate for your health, and I certainly can respect that. And the fact that you went through both of those surgeries, because I'm well aware of those surgeries, not something I had to do. But I'm well aware, because we talked about all the different options.
Right. And even everything you've done, I mean, if you're able to do that without surgery, like 100%, that is like, do that, you know.
I was very lucky, but I will say I was very lucky in mine, but it wasn't an easy feat, and I still have nothing like that anymore, but I still have flare-ups every once in a while. Right. Because mine's atypical. There's no real fit case to that, so you can't look at it and go, let me look at the MRI and find the exact spot where it's doing that. Right. You know? And there's a lot of things that you talked about concussions. I mean, you hear a lot of people come out of the dentist with it. They go in and have a dental procedure, and all of a sudden they have trigeminal neuralgia. Right. And they'll say it was already there. And
Right.
I don't know that I necessarily think that.
I don't either.
But I do think there's something too with those migraines and the aura.
Yeah. And that's what's scary, is more of the traditional, what is well known or what's on Google is from a bad root canal or the tooth pulled and they're damaging the nerve. And it's like, who knew, like, going to the dentist that could happen.
Yeah, I didn't.
And a lot of people think,
I'm getting chills right now. Thinking,
yeah.
I hate going to the dentist.
Yeah.
Like, I'm scared.
Yeah.
I get nervous every time I have to go to the dentist.
Yeah.
And
And
especially if they say work.
yeah.
We got to do dental work. What side are you?
Yes.
Like, where? Is it the front, the back, where?
Yeah, where? And there's people who have gotten 2, 3, 4 teeth pulled thinking that's what the problem is. And it's really this branch of the nerve that's running right there. But now with the head trauma, most of these people are having it bilateral who have the head trauma.
And that makes sense.
Yeah.
That absolutely
Yeah.
makes sense. Crazy stuff. You're amazing.
I
So
try.
yeah, I kind of want to ask you a question here. Like, what did you learn in going through this? What did you learn about yourself in this process?
Oh,
Because
gosh.
this is hard.
Yeah, the biggest thing is mindset. So anyone who goes through surgery, I'm like, look, this is all about speaking into existence, faith, positivity, and mindset, and God, obviously. So there was a part of the process where, you know, I was like, why is this happening?
Sure.
And then I call it my voice. I'm like, you know, I hear from above, and it was like, okay, just get the surgery done. Everything is going to be okay. And then on the second one, it was like, get the surgery done, show that you can be bilateral, spread awareness, and go start a nonprofit. I was like, what? I don't have time for that, but hopefully that'll be coming soon. But I've learned that we have no control, and that you have to let go and let God. That's my new motto in life. So instead of, I used to stress about a lot of things, and what if this is going on at work, or what if this is going on in life? And I'm like, you know what? Sometimes things happen to us and they're horrible. But me going through this whole experience has allowed me the opportunity to now help hundreds of people.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of like, if you're going through something bad, look for the positive, look for the opportunity, and where can you help other people in this?
I think that is so good because, yeah, when you go through hard stuff, I mean, they call that a suicide disease because it's extremely painful. And the problem, I remember me, like when mine first started, I went to this, I love acupuncture is my go-to every time I have something. And I went to an acupuncturist, and I remember him telling me, this was like the first 2 weeks I was in this, he said, you know, anytime you deal with chronic pain for more than 2 weeks, it starts affecting your mental state. It starts playing on you. And I talked about this in my book, you know, about some of the mental stuff that I went through, and how if I remember, you know, thinking like if there had been a gun sitting on the island, I would have just been done. Like I would have just put myself out of it. It was so painful. But I think you learned some valuable lessons in that. And I think, you know, it taught me a lot about grit and persistence and being an advocate for my own health and really not taking the first piece of something that comes, you know, if somebody says something and I don't feel good about that, I'm going to keep digging and keep researching. So I think you said some really good things there about mindset. And I think the mindset has to be that you, no matter what you're going through, you're an advocate for who you are, whatever it is you're going through. You know your own pain and you know your worth, and you have to persist and go through that. So I think you learned some really good things there.
It's just like a lot of people say, what if, you know, like what if I get fired, or what if this doesn't work, or what if, and I'm like, well, what if good things happen? What if it does work? What if you do get the raise? So it's like, you got to do the self-talk and be positive. Yeah.
And take the risk.
Yeah, definitely.
So I kind of think we should lead this into what you're doing with the Planet Forward, because you know, you talked about this with me and you shared it on here, so I didn't even have to bring it up about this, creating this nonprofit, and you're sending like all these people to this doctor. I mean, how amazing is that? You're like a walking billboard for this, right?
Yes.
So I can tell, you know, just by listening to you that you're very much in community and giving back and helping. And so tell us a little bit about what you're doing with this over at Planet Forward. What's all going on?
What is Planet Forward?
Yeah, tell us all about it.
So Planet Ford 635, it's a Ford dealership. We're in Garland. And then we have an aftermarket lifted truck company, which is called Rad Rides. So you can buy a truck through us. And then if you want to put like a lift, wheels, tires, bumpers, lights, whatever you want, outfit it. So I do all of our events. And originally, I've been there almost 7 years. Originally, when I started on, we were kind of just attending, you know, luncheons and kind of sponsoring certain things. And then one day we were like, well, let's just do our own golf tournament. And that's developed into 2 golf tournaments and 3 shoots. And each of these events, we are able to donate back about $50,000 to a different veteran nonprofit that's local in DFW. And for anyone listening, LinkedIn is where I do all the work. So basically connecting with all these companies on LinkedIn, reaching out to them and getting them to support the events. And then when they learn about the nonprofit, they want to get involved. And then we kind of grow that each year.
I keep seeing her
Love
pictures
that.
all over social network. She's like all over the place.
That's so great.
Yeah,
You were just in Vegas not too long ago, am I correct?
Yeah, we had a big SHOT Show, so that was a big convention, and one of the big Bronco builds we did was actually out there in the booth. And what's interesting is now all of the work is mixing with all of the trigeminal neuralgia, because my own coworker, he actually, we've got over like 200 employees, so obviously I'm running around.
Yeah.
And I was at the front desk telling someone about my symptoms, and I was like, yeah, I felt like I had a worm in my head. And one of our employees was right next to me. He goes, wait, what? And he's a Marine veteran. And he goes, I feel like I have that in my head. What's wrong with you? I've been trying to figure this out for 6 years. So he got the imaging, he has it, and he had surgery.
That worm thing is real. I know what
Yes.
you're talking about.
Yes.
I get it every once in a while. It's not bad. I don't necessarily have pain with it. It just feels this weird, odd sensation.
Yeah,
that
it's
I
like
get.
a tightening, and you feel it moving, and you're like, what is that?
Yeah, and even when I get migraines, like I don't have migraines very often. I had one a few weeks ago, which was so weird because I get the aura, but I don't get the head pain any longer. I
Yes.
used to get the head pain really bad, and then I would throw up, and I'd be sick all day, and then I'd have to have like the post-stroke. I'd have another 24 hours where I would just be exhausted from the pain. But now I just get the aura. And then I can't see because it'll start like in the center and it moves across. I have to wait for it to go. It's like 20 minutes.
You can't see for like 30 minutes, like in your eye.
Because it's like somebody's shining a flashlight. And,
Yes.
But then I won't have any pain after that and I'm fine. I'll just go function. And I always, before that happens, I always kind of feel a little weird. Like I just
Yes,
feel
you're
off.
like, something's wrong.
I'm either really irritable or really
Yes.
excited or
Yes.
just feel off.
Yeah, and you're like, I feel like my vision's not
You get those?
focusing.
No, I don't.
Well,
She's like, thank God.
No, I'm just like thinking
Yeah.
because my sister gets migraine,
Okay,
so
so
I'm
she might have it.
Yeah.
But I'm literally thinking, God, I wonder if she's got trigeminal neuralgia.
Hook her up with the
Yeah.
Hook her up with the
Yeah.
scalp.
And that's what's so difficult about this is like you look at someone like her or me and you're like, oh, they look fine.
Yeah.
And you don't realize what all someone is facing, and then even when I had my surgeries, I was at work and I'm like, okay, I gotta leave on Wednesday. And someone's at work is like, man, the traffic was horrible this morning, this day. And I'm like, I'm about to go have a hole drilled in my head, and you're trying to balance all of that.
Well, it certainly does put a new perspective on life. I'm telling you, listen to somebody else and you're thinking, oh, you got it bad. Let me go put a hole in your head.
Yeah.
Put a drill in your head. You don't
Yeah.
know what bad is.
Yeah.
Well, let me pass that disease on to you for a while, right?
Yeah.
I think you're amazing. You got
Thank
great
you.
energy and you're obviously doing well. I had another really good question I wanted to ask you.
Well, I was just going to ask, because this focus on positivity and speaking things into life, all of that, God, you've been through a lot. So I know that you've had days where you're like, this sucks.
Yeah.
This is really hard. When the going got tough for you, how were you able to flip it, and flip the script for yourself?
That's good.
Yeah. Gosh, I think the hardest part was when I didn't have the diagnosis because I was like, this is just what it is. This is it. And I would have days where I would literally walk across the street to the gas station because I would randomly just cry. Like it makes you emotional and I'm always happy. And then I would just start crying and you feel bipolar, but you're not.
Because you're hurt.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'd go and wash my face, put my makeup back on, go back to work. I didn't ever miss work. No one knew. And then my favorite is I'd be at home and I'd go take a shower and sit on the floor and cry. And I'm like, okay, this isn't a Lifetime movie. Like, get up,
Right.
So, but once I had that diagnosis, I kind of was like, okay, you know what? There's a reason. There's a reason for this. There's a reason. And that's what I just kept telling myself. And I actually would get more nervous to talk in front of people than I was the mornings of both my surgeries. So Dr. Lim, you just felt that connection with him where you felt so comfortable that the morning of, I was just like, all right, let's do this, and I felt comfortable. And that's why I tell people, if you're going to have this surgery, it is all about that mindset and speaking into existence. Because if you're not in the right headspace, you don't need to be doing the surgery because it's a lot with the recovery and being patient. And, it's scary because you wake up and, you could be dizzy or have, still have shocks. And a lot of people think it didn't work,
Right.
I learned to have a really high pain tolerance because most people are off anywhere from 4 to 12 weeks. And then I was back at work after 2 weeks on both sides.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
So, but
amazing.
But when I went through this, you know, I had no clue. Like when I woke up, it was, okay, does everything work the same? What's going on? So now all these people are reaching out on social media, and then I'll offer my advice for pre and post-op and say, this is what helped me the best. And what's really neat is all of these individuals now who are having success are actually helping other people now.
Yeah.
So it's like this whole web that's spreading, which is pretty neat. Yeah.
So do you have any plans to get this charitable foundation together that you're trying to create?
Yes, I actually have 2 friends who we met via social media, and one of them I've been friends with for about 2.5 years, and she actually, and that kind of goes back to your question, she hadn't had the surgery, but she understood, and we had never met, and for 2.5 years we were messaging, and when I had really hard days, I would just message her and she would respond to me, and vice versa. And after I had my 2 surgeries, she's like, okay, I can do it now. You're okay, you're still living. So she had surgery, so she's going to be involved. And then I have another friend who had surgery in New York and found me on social media, and she's like, something's not right, something's not right. And she couldn't stand for more than like 5 minutes. Her heart rate would spike up 40 beats per minute, metal taste in her mouth. Her neurosurgeon stopped talking to her.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
She ends up flying to Dr. Lim, laying down. She had a titanium plate instead of the bone cement. The plate was coming out of her head.
Oh, I remember. Oh, wow.
Yes.
I remember you telling me about this. Wow.
Yes. She goes in for emergency surgery. He takes the plate out. She has a CSF leak. He does the bone cement. And 1 week later, I get a selfie of her at the soccer field with her kids. And I'm like, that is what it's about.
If you have migraines,
yes,
or aura, any of the above, you
or
need
zaps.
to connect with this gal so she can connect you to Dr. Lim.
Yes,
for sure.
And just so everyone knows, obviously, Dr. Lim, he's now at Stanford in California. They do virtual consults in Texas, and they do absolutely nothing for me. This is me just trying to help.
You definitely need to get your foundation put together.
Yeah.
You're doing a lot of good. And
yeah.
I think it's awesome though that you're taking that whole story and the negativity that came with that, and you flip that around, like, okay, now how do I help people that could possibly be going through this? Because like I told you, there wasn't a lot back then. I mean, I think you're finding out more people. I mean, I've met several people now that have been diagnosed with it. And when you're in the middle of that, in the middle of a condition, and you don't know anybody that's walking that walk, it's rough. Because you like we talked earlier, you get told you're crazy, so you don't really have a lot of people that can relate to that.
Yeah.
So
and there's so many doctors, like my friend. I mean, they go somewhere and there's plates coming out of people's heads. Or I have another friend who had surgery in Germany, and she flew to Dr. Lim, and when they went in there were 2 veins wrapped around her nerves, suffocating it, that they never even addressed. So he just cauterized them, and then she was good.
Better.
Yeah.
What?
So it's like you can't
Crazy.
Crazy.
you can't just go anywhere.
This guy's a miracle worker.
Yes.
So you learn something new every day. I've learned a lot of amazing things.
Well, and for me, I'm in the camp of, I don't get it that you have migraines. Like, are they really that painful, or is it really that debilitating? And like, suck it up, right? And I mean, I wouldn't say that to my sister, of course. And I've had a migraine once in my life, and that's the only thing that I could think of in terms of me being, sympathetic about it, because once I experienced it, I was like, whoa, like this is real.
And there's even a part, I forgot this part, but I would get here. Like I would ice my eye and ice my neck, and it was the part of the nerve here and here.
Yes.
And basically it feels like someone's pulling a rubber band in your head like that for 48 hours. Yeah. Oh. And you just ice to try to make it go away.
It's awful.
Yeah, it's definitely not a fun disorder. So I'm absolutely glad that you are feeling better and got what you needed to take care of that.
And that you're spreading so much awareness, and it's beautiful.
Thank you.
It really is.
It's a blessing. I mean, just to be able to help people. I mean, you obviously have been through it.
Yeah. It's not fun. I think we should do some fun rapid fire.
Oh,
yeah. Let's do some fun rapid fire. This has been good, Sheena. And I think anybody out there that is, that, like I said, has migraines, wants to look into that further. I mean, because I think a lot of people get diagnosed with migraines and they're just told they have migraines and the deal,
Right.
So maybe they need to explore that and see,
Yes.
That is
And
a possibility.
also a lot of different doctors, based on who they go to, will say you have to take these meds for a year or 2 years before we'll even look at. And I'm like, and those people are on disability and they can't function or work and have to quit their careers. So it's like, you don't have to go that route, you know.
We need to connect.
There are
them to.
options.
That's right. All right. So let's do some fun rapid fire. You want to start?
Yes.
Okay.
I would love to know, tacos or pizza?
Tacos.
Tacos sounds so good right now.
Food.
We got lots of Mexican food. I tell you,
That's
like
me.
that's always comes up is the Mexican food. Okay. First concert you ever went to?
Oh,
Keep coming back
I'm
to
embarrassed by this one. Backstreet Boys.
Yes, Backstreet's back.
I heard them the other day and I was like jamming out to them, but then I caught your New Kids on the Block the other day and I'm like, I was watching, they keep popping up in my TikTok. I'm like, why do New Kids on the Block keep coming in my
They're
TikTok?
about to be on tour.
Yeah, apparently they want me to see it. I was a little older, so they weren't mine. That was her jam.
That was my jam.
My sister liked them, I think, too. So
Oh, Coke or Pepsi?
Coke.
good answer. All right, favorite destination spot.
I would say where I've been recently, Key West.
Oh,
It's fun.
very cool. This will be our last question.
Go for it.
If you could be any animal, what would you be?
Any animal.
That's a good one. We haven't done this one in a while.
I don't know why a cheetah popped in my head
I
for
totally
some reason.
see you being a cheetah. I was like, she's gonna say a lion, cheetah, something. I could totally see it. Meow.
Yeah.
You need to put some cheetah boots on or
Yeah.
something, you know? This is good. It's fun. All right. So if our guests wanted to connect with you, where do you want us to send them so they can find you?
Probably Facebook, just under my name. So Sheena Sharapata, LinkedIn. That's a big one. I'm working on getting a website, but for now, just for social.
We're going to be cheering you on to get
Yeah.
that foundation created. And if you need any connections on that, like, advice or anything, let me know. We can hook you up with some people.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
We're excited for
We
you.
know a lot of people that have them. So fun stuff.
Absolutely. Yes.
All right. Well, to our listeners, we want to say if you enjoy our show, please be sure you give us a rating both on iTunes and Facebook, because we can't do this without you, and hit the subscribe button on YouTube.
That's right. And we would love to leave you with a final thought. This one is from Robert Brault. Enjoy the little things, for one day you may look back and realize they were the big things.
That's a good one.
I thought that was good for you.
Yeah,
That is good.
That's good.
Absolutely. All
I
right.
like that.
To live the extraordinary, you have to start, and every start begins with the decision. You guys take care, be safe, and be kind to one another. We will see you next time.
Bye.